and welcome back to the Unfiltered Trainer podcast. I'm your host, Gina, aka Gina Marie Fit, and I'm super excited to be back on the mic. We are doing a health and fitness episode, and I really want to dive into the concept of people that are quote unquote not getting results. But let's catch up a little bit. It's been a couple weeks since we last chatted. Your girl has been booked and busy. For those that don't know, I run a charity collaboration organization called Sweating Together for a Cause. And because my role at my full-time job has really kind of like consumed my existence as there's been so much to do, I haven't had the appropriate time that I was really banking on this year to focus on it. So I'm super excited because in the last couple weeks, I have been booking interviews with nonprofit organizations, setting up fundraisers, collaborating on fundraisers. And this is really the kind of thing that just like sets my soul on fire. I have been told so many times like, oh, you should just run a nonprofit. And in order to even fund a nonprofit, you obviously need to have a consistent source of income to grow those things that you're so passionate about. And so behind the scenes, I've been doing a lot of that. I've also gotten to take the opportunity to take some fitness classes with some of my friends and just really focusing on a concept that I shared in a reel on Instagram yesterday, talking about restarting, resetting, refocusing. If you had told me that it's August and I would be where I'm at compared to where I thought I would be at, like I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I'm like hella disappointed. I just had really envisioned a different look for my life that did not include working 7 days a week most weeks, balancing like 80-hour work weeks. I really thought that 2023 would be the last of that. But obviously there's been a lot of hiccups along the way this year, and I'm also very much in the thick of TBI rehab recovery. And so even that situation is very much ongoing. If you would have said being shy, like what are we, 9 days shy of a year since the accident, that I would still be 1, in rehab, 2, dealing with the mess that is insurance, and 3, still trying to come to terms with the fact that I really am affected by this, and I don't want to admit how affected I am by this. But this weekend, and this is the Unfiltered Trainer, and if you're watching this, you can literally see I'm like holding myself right now as I say this and getting really nervous. I had a really tough week last week, and I don't usually cry. I usually just get like pissed off and shut down and disappear. But I definitely shed some tears. A friend sent me a care package because I was really just going through it in life. And at the end of the day, what's really hard about everything is that I already have normal life stress, normal work stress. Like those are just things you expect. But having a TBI makes everything you do a million times harder. And especially when you're in extreme stress or situations that are difficult to manage, for me, it's like 10 times worse. And so I called my friend like just losing my shit last week because I just felt like everything had got to be too much again, and just questioning if I could even do all that I'm doing and if I even like, if this is the place for me. And I feel like just something that is my natural MO when life gets hard is just to disappear. I just pick up and leave. I've been doing it my whole life. Literally, that's what was my childhood. And as an adult, that's really how I cope with things, is I just disappear and I leave. And so I've really just been struggling with the fact that I don't have the same friend group I had when I first moved here. I don't have the same outlets I did. I very much have a lot of responsibility and a lot of things I'm managing. So a lot of my time is spent working, which I personally love. Like I'm a workaholic and I find so much joy from working, but I'm also having the hardest time because not having that consistent friend group means I spend a lot of time by myself, and in the beginning of the brain injury recovery, that was necessary. Like socializing was not something I could do. I couldn't even sit in a restaurant in the beginning. There were things like they weren't encouraged, couldn't go on a plane, couldn't go to concerts, couldn't be in loud environments. It was a lot. And so now I'm trying to figure out who I am and figure out what I want in my life. And I'm trying to figure out who belongs in my life and where do I belong. And this weekend, I just feel like I think I hit a wall finally of just being like so fed up with myself and my situation and still working as much as I'm working and just trying to figure out if my efforts are ever going to be enough, or like what is the next step if they're not. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so this weekend I literally had 15 patients Saturday, 15 patients Sunday, 16 today. It's Monday as I film this. And I literally every day after I got off work grabbed some snacks and I literally laid in my bed. Some days I got home at 6:30 or 7. Yesterday I got home a little early. I think I got home at like 5 or 5:30. And then today I got home and I literally had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself. I literally was like, you cannot stay in this depressive state. Like, you've got to find a way to work through these frustrations. And I think this was all triggered because last week I had to have a conversation with one of my legal counsel. There's so much I can't talk about because like this is still like an ongoing thing. But it was the first time I had talked to like the big one, like the big head of honcho. And we had to piece together a timeline. And obviously my brain and my memory are like not there. And I couldn't even remember like my doctor's names, who I've literally been seeing for a freaking year. And so I think what triggered me into being so depressed this weekend was the fact that like I had to relive everything that's happened to me. And I haven't gone through like mental health therapy yet to really deal with what happened during the accident, how severe it really was. I've never publicly talked about really the extent to what happened that day and the coming days, and the fact that things were just not handled the way they should have from a medical perspective. So I returned to work after a couple of weeks to find out like really shouldn't have been at work and all the ramifications of what that did to me. And I think reliving everything I've been through and how much I've lost and how far I still have to go, I think it just like triggered me more than I expected. And then I went back to work in a stressful environment all weekend. It was just really long days. And I just like was done. And I got so fed up with myself. And I just got in this really weird headspace of where I was just blaming myself that I still have so much weight to lose, blaming myself that I wasn't farther in life than I thought I would be, blaming myself that like this TBI has affected me so much that like I really didn't think this is where I'd be in my life by this time of the year. And then I blame myself for like the lack of support I have and like the fact that I used to be the person surrounded by people. And now I just kind of wonder if I become the person that no one wants to be around. And so if that's maybe why I spend so much time by myself, is that maybe I'm not that good of a person. And so your girl went into a depression tailspin. And so today when I found out a couple of my patients had canceled and I was going to get home at a decent hour and film this podcast before I go close at the studio, I just really had to sit down and just think to myself, like, so you're not where you want to be in life. And then it kind of like reminded me of the podcast I was going to film tonight. Like, so you're not seeing the results you wanted. There's always a series of circumstances and situations that lead us to anything, whether you're not as far as you would like to be in your professional life or your personal life or your health and fitness, your physical life, like your physical results. And so I feel like this is a good leading place to go into today's health and fitness episode, because the mental side of things is obviously aligned with the physical side of things. And so I work with a lot of online health and fitness clients. If you do not know that, I'm not just an in-person personal trainer, but I have a whole online health and fitness business. And I deal with a lot of women who get very caught up in the numbers, who get very caught up in the reality of what progress really looks like. And it's not just like consistently losing weight and losing inches. And I deal with a lot of people that get frustrated because to have results requires you doing the same things day in and day out. And it can be boring and it can be tedious and it can be monotonous. But a lot of times you can't change too many factors. You have to change one factor at a time in order to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then pair those things together so we can further make progress. And so if you're one of those people that's not seeing results, there are 5 things that I'm going to go over today that are the things I see the most common and the things that lead to success if you just adjust which ones need adjusted in the right time frames. And so the first one, to really break a plateau, break a fitness rut if you're not seeing results, is progressive overload. Progressive overload can be done in a variety of ways, but it enables you to increase the stress and strain on the muscles. It helps you to adjust your progress in the gym, and it enables you to progress yourself without doing anything drastic in a sense of completely changing your programming because you think the programming isn't hard enough or the results aren't happening fast enough. Progressive overload is incredible because it can help with muscle growth and strength. It can help with injury prevention. It can help enhance your motivation. It enables you to build more endurance. It helps you avoid plateaus. It obviously helps with improving your mobility as we age. And it also helps you to improve your physical stability. And so there's a lot of great options in terms of making progressive overload a way to implement it in your programming. For example, you can just increase the weight you're using for an exercise. Super simple. Obviously, you can adjust the repetition numbers that you do. You can increase the intensity of your workout, increase the amount of time you spend on the eccentric or the concentric being the shortening, the eccentric being the lengthening. And you can also increase the amount of time by adding additional working sets to your workout to increase the strain on the muscles, which will elicit a different response than what you were previously doing. The second thing you can do is time under tension. That is the lengthening phase of the exercise. It's the amount of time that the muscles have to remain under tension to elicit results. If you're like, what's the difference between progressive overload and time under tension? Time under tension specifically is meant to increase the amount of time a muscle is under tension. So things you can do are slow down. If you slow down the movement of the repetition and you spend more time on the lengthening part, like the difficult part of the exercise, like if you're doing a push-up and you're controlling your body on the way down, you slow down and you slow on your way up. You could add a pause at the top of a movement. If you're in a squat, pause at the bottom, hold 1, 2, and then try to drive up versus just trying to rep it out as fast as you possibly can. It's shocking what happens to your workouts when you simply just add a 2-second pause. You can adjust the set length. So for optimal muscle growth, you can try aiming your sets to last between a certain amount of time. Typically, a set of 10 reps for an average person can take anywhere from 15 to 25 seconds. So if you implement time under tension, that amount of time that you're repping it out should extend. It should be lengthening so that if the set length increases, the muscle has to work longer and harder. You could implement things, especially for power training, powerlifting, where you do time under tension for a certain amount of intervals of seconds. So if you're hitting a bench press and you're using a certain tempo, which is like, say you're going 3 seconds per rep. So you have a total of 3 reps and you're doing a total of time under tension for 9 seconds. You can adjust the equation to elicit a better response. There's no scientific proof, so to speak, that it supports muscle building, but it does enhance the muscle fiber recruitment, which promotes hypertrophic adaptations, which elicits a response from the body that will help you break a plateau. So it's just a way to implement time under tension to elicit change. The third thing is probably no one's favorite, and it's assessing your intake. And I say this lightly because I know for a lot of people, and I am in this category, disordered eating is a real thing. And when you speak to people about nutrition, you definitely have to speak in terms of kindness and understanding, because there are a lot of people that feel a lot of ways about food. One of the simplest ways that I help clients to plateau with their intake is adjusting their protein. You realistically can eat about 1 gram per pound. Some dietitians say 1 to 1.1, 1 to 1.2, but you really can eat a sufficient amount of protein if you're adjusting the way you're eating it throughout the day. And so increasing your protein helps sustain the muscle you're trying to build. Obviously, the more muscle you have, the better metabolism, the better you burn fat. So simply just adjusting your intake by simply making sure that you're getting in enough protein is a quick way to break a fitness plateau and help you see results. Another thing you can do with your intake, and I'm not going to be your favorite person when I say this for a lot of my people, is limit your alcohol. I know it's something that just goes hand in hand with having a good time, but a lot of people want to do a lot of things in the fitness industry and the fitness side of things, like want to see results in the gym. The quickest way you can undo your progress is drink. Especially those of us, and I'm in this category, that love a dark liquor. Like I love a Jack Daniels. Like we all know this. It's a good time. A little Jack and ginger ale is my jam. However, dark liquor is the worst for you because of the sugar content. So even just limiting, modifying clear liquor with limited sugar can be a modification, or just cut it out completely entirely. Simple things like people that cut out soda and they drop 20 pounds. It's because it's unnecessary empty calories that at the end of the day elicits a good time, but it doesn't necessarily mean you need it to have a good time. And then another way that you can adjust your intake, and I know no one's going to like to hear this, is by tracking your calories. And I mean all of them. There are too many times I have worked with clients and they track maybe 70 to 80% of their intake, and then they don't track. And when I ask them to track 100% of their intake through a food journal and really assess and put it in your little MyFitnessPal, when you realize how many times you got an extra snack or an extra cookie or an extra candy bar, it's crazy how fast those calories add up. It's slightly shocking. So if you're struggling and you're killing it in the gym and you're hydrating and you're resting and you're stretching, you're like, I don't understand why I'm not getting results. I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I'm going to be, because, it's the Unfiltered Trainer and I'm going to say what needs to be said. And we know this. It's your nutrition. It is your nutrition. Most of the time, it is your nutrition. You think you're eating healthy, but you don't realize how much you're eating, because you can overeat when you're eating healthy. Most of the time, the majority, I would say 90% of the clients that I have currently had this year have all been under eating and not realizing it, and working out 5-6 days a week in the gym, wondering why they can't put on muscle because you're in a deficit. You don't even realize you're in a deficit. It's all over the place when it comes to nutrition, but it is the key factor if you want specific results. You have to track to understand. Now, I say that as a disclaimer because macro tracking is triggering for a lot of people. You have to go into it with the mindset that it is a resource. It is a tangible tool for you to understand where you're at and get you to where you want to go. For most people, it's just understanding what a portion really looks like, how much they actually should be eating, which, like friends, hello, is a lot of food. Like, it's funny how many, and not haha funny, but just like alarming funny for a lot of my clients when they're like 12, 13, 1400 calories and we bump them up to 17 and start a reverse. And they are shocked by how much food 1700 calories is, when realistically, like, we got to keep going up because you're not even where you're at to sustain the kind of results you're looking for. And so a lot of people, if they just tracked for a few weeks, it would be a super beneficial educational tool that would help you help yourself get to where you want to go and break that fitness plateau. That kind of rhymed. That was kind of cute if I didn't stutter in the middle of it. Number 4, and this is like me call the pot calling the kettle black, because number 4 is to manage your stress and rest so you properly recover. I'm definitely a hypocrite right now because I'm not managing my stress. My stress is managing me. And I'm resting and sleeping a lot because I was like super depressed, and just sleep was just the way to answer all of my problems, because if I'm sleeping, I don't have to deal with anyone or anything. And so realistically, if you want to break a fitness plateau and you're crushing it in the gym, you know your intake's good, you know you're hydrating, it probably is related to your stress and your high cortisol levels. I met with a PA a couple weeks ago, just like for a vendor event, and we were just casually talking, and they said, we would bet money that your cortisol is probably through the roof right now. And I'm actually going to get blood work because I actually know it is. I'm like really swollen, really inflamed, obviously really tired, just like all of the symptoms of like not balanced hormones and cortisol specifically. So managing your stress is something that I, over the last few days, have like had to really have a come to Jesus moment with, and sit down and be like, you've got to stop doing for everybody and start doing for yourself. And so Friday, I laid at the pool, I read a book, and I gave myself an hour. I got my nails done because they looked ratchet as hell. I gave myself an hour and a half. It killed me because they did my fingers and my toes at the same time. Has anybody else had that experience? I felt like I was going to have an anxiety attack because I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything, but literally the universe was forcing me to not even be able to touch my phone, which makes me cringe, but it was everything I needed in that moment. Sometimes life is going to give us what we need, and we may not like it, but it's what we asked for. So really focusing on managing your stress, focusing on rest and recovery. I had the most incredible experience at Recovery Oasis in St. Pete, where I got to do a cold plunge. Yes, I did it. It was hilarious. I should probably share the video because it's honestly so funny. Did a sauna, which I just absolutely love because I love being warm, and I did red light therapy, and I definitely want to go back. But I don't recover well, and I don't properly do the things I need to do because I don't enable myself to have time. It's not that I don't have time, it's that I choose to prioritize work and everybody else before my own needs, and that's something that I clearly need to work on. And if you're listening to this, you probably do too. But it's super important to make sure that if you're hitting it hard in the gym and you're focusing on your intake, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not stretching, doing your mobility and recovering properly, it's just as important what you do after the workout as what you did during. So don't negate the results you could be obtaining by not doing what you need to do to properly get yourself ready for that next session. Lastly, for some of us, it comes down to simply changing up our routines. Sometimes the thing you need most is just a change in your routine. We talked about realistically the frequency of working out a little bit ago, but for some of you, that actually is the answer to your fitness plateau. Some of you are going 6-7 days a week, which is terrifying. You know who you are. In reality, you could be getting excellent results in 3 to 4 days a week. A lot of my clients are realizing that you don't need to be working out 6 days a week. Hell, most people don't even need 5, depending on how your programming is. The most weight training days I program for my clients is 5 days a week, because if you're hitting the right groups with the right amount of time under tension and progressive overload with the right sets, reps, and weight selection, why do you need 6 days? You don't, unless you're going into overuse, which increases your risk for injury. So simply, a lot of you on this podcast just need to change up your routine. And that doesn't just mean in the gym, because something I've implemented is just throwing in a Pilates class. I'm trying to go every other week until I can consistently get my routine down. But I love supporting my friends who teach. So I've been going. I just got to go last week, and I'm going to go again in 2 weeks. I also went and took a class at one of my friends that runs a glute gym. Like just throwing in some different things, getting out of my work environment. I probably should do an episode on what it's like working full-time in fitness, because you would think like, oh, it's so easy. You have access to a gym. Y'all, when I work full-time in fitness, this is the least I work out, because even if I take a class, I have things to do and I can't stop thinking about it if I'm there. And so part of my routine change up has been implementing a different class just to support my local friends who are teachers. Part of that has been a midday work break, just sitting at the pool for an hour and reading. And something I want to work on this week is going for an evening walk. It's really hard right now because it's 1,000 degrees in Florida. And even at 8 o'clock when I'm done closing the studio, it's hot as hell. Like you don't want to do anything. So I'm trying to find some time to just get in an evening walk and just implement being outside in nature more, because even just low steady state cardio, they call it list cardio, is a great way to change up your routine and implement a way to help you get results that's not so taxing on the body. So recap, if you are somebody that is struggling to get results and you're not seeing the kind of results you want, it simply comes down to things that are really not that complicated. What's your programming look like? Is your programming appropriately being progressed? Are you eating enough to support the results you think you want to obtain? Are you indulging more than you realize you are and it's throwing off your game? Are we really evaluating our life, our lifestyle choices, the people we spend our time with, and the environments we work in? Are they increasing our stress and making things worse? And are we appropriately recovering and resting, or are we compromising that because we have too much on our to-do list and not enough time to get things done? And lastly, it simply could just be that you've been doing the same things for too long and it's time to change up your routine. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. But also, if you're looking, don't talk about this too often, but if you're somebody that's not local to Tampa and you're like, hey, I need somebody to give me one-on-one attention, I do work with Project Breakthrough, which is an online health and fitness company that provides what I call more than macros and workouts. It really becomes like a mind, body, soul experience. And so you get a very individualized approach to training, but online. So that option, I'll put the link for that in the show notes because that is always very beneficial. But lastly, as we kind of wrap up this episode, I want to get the most feedback from you guys. And so if there's a topic you want to see covered in the upcoming episodes, if there's something you want me to go over, I am working finally on the interview process of figuring out interviewing people. I really want to get different perspectives on this podcast. That's what's next. But I definitely want to hear from you. And if you want me to address a certain topic, drop me a comment. You can send me a DM on Instagram at the Unfiltered Trainer or leave a comment under the Tuesday Reel, which is the video reel. But definitely let me know because I want this to be an interactive experience and I want you to get something out of it too. So if you have something you want me to cover, let your girl know. But as always, without further ado, y'all, stay tuned and I'm going to see you in the next episode.